Abu Dhabi's midnight stillness shattered by a deafening roar. Not thunder, not an accident, but an explosion splitting the night. People jolted awake, windows rattling, panic sweeping through the city. Sirens wailed as emergency lights flickered across the skyline, transforming peace into chaos. Sirens echoed through the city as residents scrambled from their beds, panic spreading fast. In lobbies and stairwells, people clutched children and pets, faces pale with fear. Smoke rose in the distance, glowing orange against the black sky. The city's calm was gone, replaced by raw, helpless fear. The source of the destruction soon became clear. Intelligence and radar stations reported a ballistic missile launch from Iran, arcing high above the Persian Gulf. The missile, sleek and deadly, raced toward Abu Dhabi's heart. UAE air defenses scrambled, launching interceptors in desperate pursuit. For tense moments, streaks of light chased across the sky. The world watched live feeds as defense batteries fired and explosions blossomed in midair. But one missile broke through. A failure in the shield, a nightmare come true. Its target was civilian, an area dense with homes and businesses. The impact came at 12:43 a.m. The ground shook. Glass shattered for blocks. Alarms screamed as shockwaves buckled doors and sent debris flying. The missile's warhead exploded on a busy avenue, devastating several apartment blocks and nearby shops. Within minutes, the Ministry of Defense confirmed the attack. The world's eyes turned to Abu Dhabi. A single missile, launched by a nation hundreds of miles away, had forever changed the city's sense of invincibility. Daybreak revealed the full measure of destruction. Streets were littered with broken glass, twisted metal, and scorched debris. Firefighters battled flames licking at shattered buildings. The acrid smell of burning plastic hung in the air. Survivors wandered in shock, some with bloodied faces, others wrapped in blankets, barely able to speak. Ambulance crews moved quickly, treating wounds and carrying the injured to waiting vehicles. Hospitals became beacons of hope and desperation, overwhelmed with patients. Surgeons worked by flashlight as backup generators hummed, nurses comforting children whose parents were still missing. Rescue teams moved door to door, searching for survivors beneath collapsed walls and ceilings. The wounded and dazed were led to triage tents in nearby parks. Volunteers handed out water and food, trying to bring calm to the chaos. The city's emergency response, trained for disaster but never expecting this, moved with urgent precision. At 3 a.m., the UAE's Ministry of Defense held a press conference. The spokesperson confirmed the source of the missile, praised the bravery of emergency teams, and vowed to protect Abu Dhabi and all its people. But the grim faces on the screen told a different story, one of shock, uncertainty, and grief. Tragedy struck hardest at the human level. Among the rubble, rescuers found the body of a young woman, a teacher beloved by her students. She was only one of many casualties. At least 7 people were killed, dozens injured, and hundreds left homeless. The city's hospitals filled with wounded men, women, and, most heartbreakingly, children. Families gathered anxiously in hospital corridors, clutching photographs and begging for news. Volunteers offered soft words and hot drinks, their own hands shaking. In classrooms, teachers tried to comfort weeping children. At mosques and churches, prayers rose for the missing and the lost. The emotional wounds ran deep. For many, the trauma of the night would not fade quickly. Sleep became elusive, and every loud sound brought a jolt of terror. Community centers opened their doors to provide counseling and support, but the road to healing was long. Across Abu Dhabi, simple acts, lighting a candle, embracing a loved one, sharing a meal, became rituals of resilience. The city mourned, but it also stood together, determined to not be broken by fear. The attack on Abu Dhabi sent ripples of alarm across the Middle East. In Israel, air raid sirens sounded in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Troops were mobilized and Iron Dome batteries readied for possible new strikes. Bahrain closed its schools and government offices, fearing further attacks. Qatar, just across the Gulf, issued a security alert. Flights were grounded, and embassies urged citizens to stay indoors. Even in Iran, the mood was tense. Officials warned of potential Western retaliation and placed military units on alert. Rumors of more missiles spread quickly, feeding a regional sense of dread. Across the region, cities braced for more violence. Security forces increased patrols. Borders were tightened, and checkpoints sprang up on highways. The familiar rhythms of daily life, school runs, shopping trips, business meetings, were put on hold as people waited for news. For millions, the missile strike in Abu Dhabi was not just a local tragedy, it was a warning. The possibility of wider war loomed, casting a shadow over every conversation, every plan, every hope for tomorrow. The shock of the attack did not stop at the edge of the blast zone. Flights in and out of the UAE were cancelled or rerouted. Dubai International Airport, usually a hub of non-stop activity, stood nearly silent. Travel plans were ruined, and business deals vanished in an instant. Markets across the region tumbled. Oil prices spiked as traders feared further instability. Shipping lanes grew quiet, and hotels reported mass cancellations. The world's reliance on Gulf energy and commerce was suddenly clear, and suddenly at risk. Communication networks, strained by the deluge of calls, buckled under the pressure. Emergency hotlines were flooded. Even internet speeds slowed as people searched for updates and tried to contact loved ones. For many businesses, the day's work simply stopped. Border crossings with Saudi Arabia and Oman were closed until further notice. The isolation felt physical and psychological. As the clock ticked on, the city wondered not just how to rebuild, but how long this new reality would last. As news of the missile strike spread, world leaders responded with urgency. The United States condemned the attack, calling it an unacceptable act of aggression. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session. European and Asian powers issued statements of solidarity and concern. Iran's government claimed the strike was a defensive response to earlier events, but denied targeting civilians. Israel called for immediate international action and placed its military on high alert. Bahrain and Qatar demanded answers and support from allies. Russia urged calm, while China called for restraint on all sides. Diplomatic channels buzzed with activity. Behind closed doors, leaders weighed options: retaliation or restraint, condemnation or negotiation. Every word, every decision seemed to carry the weight of war or peace. For ordinary people in Abu Dhabi, these statements felt distant and abstract. What mattered most was survival, and the hope that leaders would choose peace over violence, dialogue over destruction. As the sun rose, the city looked different. The smoke had cleared, but the scars remained, on buildings, on faces, on hearts. Abu Dhabi was quieter now. Streets were empty, shops closed, schools silent. The routine of daily life was broken, replaced by questions and worries that had no easy answers. In homes and shelters, families clung to each other. Some wept. Others simply stared out windows, lost in thought. Nightmares lingered, and every siren brought fresh fear. Yet amid the sorrow, there was also resilience. People volunteered, donated blood, and offered shelter to those left homeless. The future felt uncertain. Would there be more attacks? Would leaders find a way to end the violence, or would the region spiral into wider conflict? No one knew. But in the midst of fear, hope remained. A stubborn hope, born of years of peace and the determination not to be defined by terror. For Abu Dhabi, and for the Middle East, this was a turning point. The world was watching. The choices made in the coming days would echo for years to come. In the city's battered heart, one wish was shared by all: that peace somehow would prevail.